Okay, good evening. Welcome to the November 2nd, 2022 meeting of the Hamilton Zoning Board of Appeals. We are live and in person and also on Zoom. If you want to join by Zoom, you can find the link on the town webpage on the ZBA agenda. Our agenda this evening is a continuation of a public hearing for the property owned by Matthew and Erin Curtin, applicant Ford Properties LLC at 550 Bay Road, requesting a variance for the proposed front yard setback. Continuation of a public hearing for the property at 3 Beach Street, owner Merrick Mimo. Applicant is seeking approval to amend the 2021 ZBA decision, which approved an extension or alteration of a non-conforming use to construct an addition at the rear of the existing single-family dwelling so that 2 additional stories may be constructed on the addition, and to appeal the Town of Hamilton Building Inspector's decision, which issued a cease and desist order. And continuation of a public hearing for comprehensive permit submitted by Harborlight Community Partners under MGL Chapter 40B for construction of a 45-unit multifamily housing at 466 Highland Street, owned by the Britton Family Trust, LLC. And we have some minutes to approve. Our colleague Andy Phillip will not be joining us this evening. So first item on the agenda is the application of Matthew and Erin Curtin at 550 Bay Road, and we received a letter from the applicant and the applicant's representative, Ford Properties, asking for permission to withdraw without prejudice the application. And it's been the board's policy to allow them. So if there are no questions or comments, I would entertain a motion to allow the petitioner to withdraw the petition at 550 Bay Road. Is there a motion?
No, motion that.
Moved by Bruce Gingrich. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by David. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay. Like any other decision, I will file a decision on that. Next, continuation of a public hearing for 3 Beach Street. Eric Mimo is the applicant. At the last meeting, we asked the applicant to submit consolidated plans for a 2-story or addition, and he has submitted these plans. So if you want to tell us about them, or
Good evening, gentlemen. I want to start out with an apology again. Last meeting, mentally, physically exhausted, so thank you for bearing with me on that. I did have the architect draw in the proposed drawings like you asked. I did notice recently there was one measurement that was missed that didn't get on the drawings, showing the existing elevation of the A-frame portion of my home. On the drawing, showing the existing home is a height of 25 feet, and the highest point of my new roof line is 25.1. He has made that amendment today, and I can get you new copies of that, just so you have that as well. That didn't make it on that sheet.
okay, any questions from members of the board regarding the new plans?
What's the purpose of the basement? Sitting down there.
The basement is open space downstairs. It does have the new added bathroom down there, but the rest of it is just open space.
That's a full, that's not just a bathroom, that's a full shower and seems like a,
Correct, we did pull in a full bathroom.
And refresh my recollection, you filed a limitation at the Registry of Deeds, limiting the property to how many bedrooms?
It matches the existing septic system. It is a max of a 4-bedroom home,
Okay.
just like many homes in Hamilton that have excess rooms. It can only be considered a 4-bedroom.
Any other questions from members of the board?
All right, so, Mr. Memno, as I told you, I was going to dig into this, so I'm probably going to upset you and your neighbors this evening. I am just giving you all this heads up right now.
Okay.
As of right now, for yourself, based off the square footage, and this is for your own information, if the math's correct, you're about 10% over on your square footage for the 2-story. So you need to bring, or just, like I say, you're only 10% over on square footage. So you might have to shorten a side or make a slight adjustment on how you're gonna do the layout of a room. You do have an overhang on the side of the building, that is, if you're looking at your house, it's on the right-hand side. So that would be an encroachment, so you just gotta take that off.
Are you talking about the overhang that is on the short side of the addition currently right now?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was done temporarily. When I
Okay.
got the cease and desist order,
All
I
right.
had to do my best to watertight the
Fine.
situation.
Fine.
And that's
okay.
just to mitigate the water.
Got it. When looking at your plans, I am not an architect. I did consult some contractors and stuff. There was a concern from a neighbor about a possible rooftop deck. Based off of the architect plans, he would not be able to put a deck up there due to the spacing of the joists. So that was brought up by a neighbor. He can't put a deck up there based off of how he's doing the spacing on the top floor. Someone had mentioned that, so that's done. So that's the 12 in the center. There was a concern from the town on unlabeled rooms. You've answered that with the 4 rooms. There's a question about 2 kitchens. Can you clarify that on the plan? There was 2 kitchens. Was that just an error in the plans, or?
No, so my home does have an existing kitchen.
Okay.
But obviously, once the new kitchen is built, the existing kitchen comes out, and that is gonna be used as the new office space.
Okay. There was a concern from one of the neighbors. They had mentioned the size and scope of Mr. Memno's property. I have been down Beach Street probably five or six times at different times of the day. I've gone down there in different vehicles through friends, so that none of you would know I was there. I came down there early morning before sunrise because there was concerns about sunset viewing. I did not see Mr. Memno's property blocking from what some of the arguments were. I've been there in the evenings. There is some light issues, but that's changing a light bulb. One of the contentions was his house would not fit the decor of the neighborhood. Now, the neighborhood would be Beach Street. On one end of Beach Street, there are some very large modern homes, which, based on how Mr. Memno will do the outside of his house, his design would then fit with the current layout of your neighborhood. Yes, the house would be large, but the design would fit with the decor. So, on that front, I would disagree to that argument. Going through on the rest of it, when you did submit the plans, you did not give us an overlay of the plot plan to show the lines. So as you move forward, if you're going to do any changes, please add that in more detailed plans, because as you can see when you did the, and Bruce, you might be able to chime in on this for me. So basically the layout, I don't know where the borders are. You put it in the middle of the page, probably for printing purposes, but I don't see the borders based off of how close you are to the lines and stuff.
Oh, that's on the original site plan that was submitted. None,
But-
yeah, none of that has changed.
Yeah, this has been going on for a while, though. so
Sure.
In terms of speed. If you are, based off of what you want to do, reading the regulations, again, to the neighbors, this square footage is the only issue which Mr. Memno would have to address, and based off my understanding is that he's not going above the height restrictions, so he is well within his right to go up a floor if he wishes. But for Mr. Memno, the issue I see with this is you will have to obviously get yourself under the 10% over based off the square footage for 5.33, so you may have to submit a new plan to the building department. Again, this is based off mine. You may have to talk to the building department to have them recheck your square footage measurements. So
When you say square footage, what do you mean, sir?
there's a square footage, basically your addition would put you 100% over the existing size of your current house.
Okay.
So you're at 110%. You're basically, like, let's say you're at 110%. You would have to come down, so I think you would have to get down to 886 square feet based off of the overall square footage you're adding.
Okay.
So again, that's going to be between you and the architect, the building department for that regulation.
Now, does that square footage take into the loss of all the framing that is going on inside the unit itself? Because
That
you know what I mean?
It's a gross square foot.
gross square
That's,
footage?
yeah, so
That's
gross,
the overall
it's overall.
Yeah.
site, so, I mean, you're adding 2,068 square feet to this house, and your first floor is 800 something, 868 by these numbers. So I think you're well over 10%. My calculation, especially if, as you were saying earlier, your second floor doesn't really have a whole lot of floor space. You add that if you take 50% of that, you're at 1268, say, 1250 maybe, of square feet in the existing house. And you're at 2,000, 1,200. Well, I guess you are, yeah, I guess you're getting closer. Messed up.
But we can both agree, you're over the square
Adding-
footage.
I understand that now,
Oh.
but the problem is the foundation is already built. The framing for the first story is already
The
built.
second, well, that's what I'm getting. The second story,
Yeah.
you can make the adjustment there.
Well, but the problem is how do I make the adjustment on the second story and control the roof? You're talking about putting a
Maybe-
flat hip roof at the back of the addition?
Maybe put a small seated balcony area up on the backside. I don't know, I'm not a designer. I'm just giving you what's based off the rules. But you would be able to do kind of both of what you want.
So I'd have to do continue the roof overhang over it and then,
I'm not an architect.
no, I understand that.
Instead of the full third floor, the second floor, and cut back this to make it.
I know, but you still get the roof and water issue because the whole downstairs is flat.
So Dave,
All right, we'll have to rework it.
if he's adding 2,000 square feet,
Mm-hmm.
his house is about 1,200 now, he could double that as an addition. So he can add 1,200 square feet, right?
Yeah.
That's a 100% jump.
Yep.
He's adding 2,000 square feet. So that's 800 square feet
Well, I was doing
above and beyond.
I was doing about off of the fact that the second story is what we're asking for because he was already approved from our original
Yeah,
statement.
but we got to still keep within.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So.
Just because he's adding more space doesn't mean we can extend that.
All right.
This is all one project, not two different projects.
Okay. But you're still.
That's,
You're still asking for a lot more square footage. That needs to be addressed.
I understand that, but this is, the situation that I am in right now, it would be easy to address if it wasn't already halfway through construction and halfway built. And that's why I apologize when I started with this, that this meeting didn't take place prior to construction. And you have to understand, as much as I'm a man and I am responsible for that ultimately, there was things that have happened in this town on both, this level and the town's level that put me in this predicament. So is there a variance at this point or something where I can ask permission? Because you gotta understand my current situation. My project is on a 3-month hold. I'm coming into winter. The lumber and material and entire thing that is exposed right now more than likely will not survive the winter. And it'll be looking at a complete tear down and a complete rebuild. So I really need this board to think about this for a moment and really understand the gravity of this situation. Because this is basically the impasse meeting. I don't have any more time left. I've done everything I can to mitigate for water, but I cannot mitigate for snow and ice. It's impossible if I don't get this thing capped and protected. Everything is gonna split and get destroyed. And like I said, I didn't ask for this. I just went off documentation that I was given both by this board and by the building inspector. And when I say by this board, I'm not insulting you, my gentlemen, in any way, but you have to understand, it's my first time ever dealing with a board. And when I reviewed your documentation, I saw the paperwork said I was approved for the addition. And in the next line, it did mention the elevation, but I didn't ever know that I needed to come back here when it was changed, the elevation, with the building inspector. All I knew is I gave him the plans, he reviewed them, and he told me it was good to go and issued me a permit. So like I said, it's really at an impasse at this meeting.
We're trying to work with you here. I mean, if you recall, when we met 2 meetings ago, the position, the understandable position of some members of the board was, pound sand, you got something approved in, a 1-story addition, and, that's what you should live with. I think the board is trying to move, but we're not gonna turn the bylaw into a pretzel. I mean, this is right there in the bylaw, what it is, in terms of how big an addition you can make.
It's not our board, that is the building commission.
I understand that, but, I mean, you and I both know you can come into this town, and they're doing it all the time. You can tear down a 1,000-foot square home and put on a 3,000-square-foot home, and there's no question and no issues.
If you meet the requirements of the bylaw. I'm not gonna say that all of the requirements of the bylaw make sense, but they're the requirements. And it's in black and white that under this section that you're applying to, I'll read it. Non-conforming single and 2-family dwelling structures may be changed only upon a determination by the building commissioner that such proposed change does not increase the non-conforming nature of said structure by more than 100% of the residential gross floor area. That doesn't give, that's plain, and it doesn't give the board any wiggle room. We've said, informally, we've indicated, the board has indicated that we would approve some form of a 2-story addition to this property, but it's got to be within the terms of the bylaw. And, how you do it, that's up to you and your builder, your architect, and the building inspector.
So
But we're not going to approve something that's more than double the existing dwelling.
I understand that, sir. Let me ask this question to the board.
And let me, it's a clarification. Were you on the board, and I'm not asking you to go from memory, but were you on the December 2021 decision?
The first decision?
Yeah.
No. I
But you,
remember hearing it, but I
okay,
wasn't-
so I guess the question is, before this all started then, what was the square footage of the house? Do we have that figure?
I just did it off of these dimensions. It's 868 is the square
Okay.
foot of the foundation. plus
Okay.
You have the second floor.
Okay, and
The size of,
And how roughly was the square footage of the addition that was approved in December 2021?
It was the same size addition, sir. It was just the single story.
Okay, so,
The foundation footprint has not changed, the setbacks haven't changed. The only change was the elevation, and that was determined by how we were
well, it's
gonna
not
build
the
it.
elevation, it's the fact that you're adding a whole second floor.
Yeah, well,
okay, so,
like I said, that was to control.
Square foot.
Yeah, well, it was to meet the building code, because we weren't able to, if you look at the original drawings in the meeting, we weren't able to pitch. We were
well,
originally gonna
I guess,
pitch the roof back, and we had to change the pitch to the side.
It's-
So in order to tie into the I've got
sounds
two
like
different
from what
roofs.
the numbers you were saying, it's roughly 400 square feet. Because if we went from 800 to 1,200, is that
What's that, of over?
the addition, the square footage with the December 21 addition?
It was about 1,034 square feet.
Okay, so,
So we're doubling that.
I mean,
by
if we wanted to be hard guys, we could say, you're stuck, with the 800. I think, because we're trying to get something done here that will dissatisfy everyone is probably the way I'm going to put it. I think the board is willing to use the 1,300 square foot figure, which means it includes what you were already granted in December 2021. But you can't go more than double of that. And that's it. And I don't care, I don't care how you get there, but, and that's the bottom line. We're not going to approve an addition that's more than twice the size of the existing and already approved first floor.
Sir, may I ask you, has at any point in any time in this town, has a contractor or homeowner been allowed to do something that did not agree with the town bylaw?
Not that I'm aware of, that I approved if I knew it was against the bylaw.
So there has never been a recorded history in this town that there's been an accepted granted within permissible for someone to do something against a bylaw. Is that a correct statement, sir?
We certainly didn't knowingly, if it was the board, that's in my 20-plus years on the board, we've never knowingly misapplied the bylaw. Now, have there been instances where, people have disagreed with what we've done? Of course, there've been appeals, but this is in black and white, so.
And I understand that, sir, and like I have stated multiple
This is, there's no, Mr. Memo, there's no point in arguing this point. This board is not going to approve something that's more than twice what you've got there. That's it. We've already gone from, go away to we're talking about possibly approving a doubling of the size of what's there now. That's as far as we're going to go. If you're not happy with that, we'll deny, we can deny right now and move on.
So how much square footage are you asking me to try to accommodate for the second story, sir?
Basically, from what I saw, the only issue is your is the corner. So where the bedroom is. That's floor plan. So basically, it would be this corner. So, the way one of my architect guys I talked to said, you know, I'd have to do a minor adjustment to your master bedroom.
Yes,
And he-
I can do that, I understand.
Yeah, and he said, you know, make a coffee deck, or make like an outdoor coffee deck or something that you can use.
Okay, so my question is how much feet do I need to chop off the back for this? I wanna make sure I do this right, because now we're pushing this into December, and I'm really,
So the building,
Really?
the building commissioner
yeah,
is an individual.
yeah.
So you could present his plan, because that goes away from us. If we approve,
Yeah, that's
The
up to you
second-
and your designer, and
and that would be you just talking to the building commissioner about, here's the
Is it the building commissioner or the building inspector?
That's
Yeah.
it's the same.
building
Oh,
inspector.
okay.
Same thing.
All right, just making sure I go to the right person.
So if you show him your plan, that puts you within the 5.33 regulation, you, based off of what I see and what the rules state, would be able to do that second floor, because you're still within the height limit.
Okay, so I just wanna make sure I understand, so if this square footage is outside the structure, like the roof line continues, right? So
Yes.
the roof line stays exactly the way it is.
Yes.
I take that outside wall and I bring that in,
Yes.
8 feet, 10 feet, whatever it needs.
That's what I say, it would be like a
That's my question.
deck.
Yes, and make a deck at the back of the house. That I can do with the existing structure I have and get that squared away. My architect hasn't left for out of the country yet.
And then
so-
you would have to talk to the
So
building
my
inspector.
question is how much do I need to chop off the back of the addition?
That is between you, the building inspector, that is not something I can answer for you. That's between him and doing his measurements and him coming up with your plans. But he would have to put you within the conformity of 5.33. So,
he may consider that roof
and he may consider that roof,
part of the
so, like I
structure
said,
too, so.
I can't answer that.
We can't answer that, yeah.
But what I'm
Let
saying
him
is,
determine
based
that.
off of the concerns put forth by your neighbors, the rights that you have to the height variation, the already permitted square footage at the base, the fact that some of the arguments put forth by the lawyer based off of who can see what can be seen where, again, you're gonna have to make some consolidations to be within the square footage, and the neighbors might have to plant some trees if they don't like the view of your house. That's where I've come from going through this as much as I have to address the concerns of the neighbors, to meet the regulations within the purview of the town, and to meet the square footage and the 100% of the 5.33.
Okay.
As I said to everyone, no one's gonna be happy with me tonight.
Well, listen, I'm just really looking for a resolution to this matter. I do not want to get it denied from this board and take this to the next level, because you and I both know that delays the project for another 6 months.
Yeah. And
So I just want to just clarify is what I need to do to make this board.
Just so we know what we're talking about, gross floor, this is the definition in the bylaw of gross floor area residential. The area of a residential structure used for living space excluding basement and attic area. So,
Okay, so just real simple, if I put attic space at the end of the addition, whatever I gotta shorten for square footage and just make it attic and storage, then I can just leave the structure. I don't have to change all the structural design?
Let's not talk about that.
let's
because
not
that's
talk about
our-
that.
Well, no, I'm just
Attic
asking,
strict.
according to the bylaws, I'm trying to get a resolution to
No,
this matter,
it-
gentlemen.
an attic, I think an attic implies is above,
Yeah.
so,
Okay, so you guys want to see a deck at the end of the addition?
I would remove indoor living space.
Okay,
That would be within the grounds.
that's fine. I'm just, like I said, you guys are judge, jury, and executioner right now in my life, and I'm trying to resolve this matter. as quickly as possible to save my existing structure. Because, you know, like I said, it will not survive the winter if I
There's
can't get
also
this
an
thing capped.
interesting concern about the number of bathrooms in this house and their locations, and that's why I brought it up in the start of this, was this full bathroom, a very nice large bathroom down in the basement.
So,
That, to me, says that somebody's gonna be living down there, and I think I've heard somebody is living down in the original basement already. So how many bedrooms do we have in this house? We don't have enough, the
I only have...
plans aren't labeled as bedroom, what the uses are gonna be.
Sir, I thought I addressed this with you at the last meeting. According to the grounds of what the minimum standards are for a bedroom, I only have one room in this house that meets the minimum requirements for a bedroom. That's all I have, according to what the requirements are for bedrooms.
Yep, well, that might,
I'm adding 3 bedrooms that actually now all meet the requirements to make this an actual 4-bedroom house. So I do have an excess of rooms. As you show in my
have 4
plans.
bedrooms, but then you have this big basement that's
So my,
got a good chance of being a bedroom too, so it's,
sir, so if you want to know more into my life, my wife is a fitness instructor. We've rented a studio space in on Route 1, and we've had a studio for 5 years. We are letting that studio go as of this year because even though she survived through COVID, she never got her clientele back, and when during COVID, she ended up transitioning more into an online program. So she's gonna bring all her fitness equipment and all her stuff there, and she's gonna be teaching part of that area where she's gonna use to teach her online classes. And that was the thing for the bathroom. The bathroom down there, I actually, if you want to come and walk and see it, I added a soaking tub, because even though I'm not in the physique now, in 2018, I ran a marathon and a couple halves, and my wife is an avid marathon runner. And I don't know what you know about with ice training and ice baths. Ice baths are really essential when you're running. They have new systems they use, but old school use ice.
I think
So
the concern
Okay.
more was that there's a lot of bathrooms in the house. There's a lot of basically water. Now, so that thing is Bruce.
so this is leading me to another concern is, so she's gonna have an operation down here, a business down here essentially, and where's the parking for that?
It's online.
It's online, sir.
Online?
It's all, yeah, all our client, that's what happened,
Jeans are online?
there's no machines. So if you want to look into it, the program's called Fit for Mom.
It's like having a home gym. You just stream the video.
Yeah, and basically it's a 1-hour workout for moms. It does all lengths of motherhood. She has a program called Stroller Strides. We rent an indoor space at Danvers Indoor Sports. There's no clientele coming to the house, sir.
Okay.
No, I just want you to clarify. I'm an honest man. I've never lied to this board. I have given you everything straight. Every one of these meetings are recorded. It's just a series of bad events and misdirection. And even those letters, I read those letters. If you want me to speak about those letters,
Oh, no, that's why.
there's 10% truth and there's 90% misdirection.
Just
why I
just stand there for a
Yes.
all the
minute.
items.
Just stand there for a minute. Are there any questions or comments from members of the public at this point? Okay, why don't you have a seat for a minute, Mr. Memo? And
Sure.
we'll, please come up to the...
My name is Denise Kelly from 2 Beach Street.
Could you speak up, please?
My name is Denise Kelly. I'm at 2 Beach Street.
Okay.
With all of these numbers jumping around, I had looked at the bylaws as well. Mr. Memo, I think we mentioned, has, I believe, 1,340 square feet in his existing house. So does that mean that the total addition that he's putting on cannot be more than 1,340 square feet?
For discussion purposes, that's what this board is saying. That's under 5.3.3.
Okay, I just wanted to make it clear because we were talking about taking off and this and that, but the total amount of his addition cannot exceed 1,340 square feet.
Right.
Okay. I think you've read the letters, so it's a zero-sum society. I did have a realtor from J. Barrett over. She walked up the steps, and I I know that you don't think it's bad. She walked up, she stopped and said, "I can't believe the town approved that." And I said, "What's it going to do?"
Well, of course,
I
the
said-
town didn't. That's
And I said,
hence
"There's
why
a
we're
cease and
here.
desist." And I said, "What's it going to mean? What does this mean for me?" And she said, two things. Under construction, people always assume the worst. And she said, you're going to take a hit if he can put something that large on his house. So I just wanted to give you a non-neighbor comment, and I'm
Okay.
happy to provide you the
Thank you.
realtor's name, so.
Okay.
But I just wanted to clarify the 1,350 that
That's
were solid.
that's for discussion purposes, and I think you assume that is the maximum that this board, we haven't voted on anything yet,
Okay.
but that we would approve.
So given that his first story is roughly 1,000 square feet, he'd need to do just a peaked roof with another half amount above it,
Again,
or something
Yeah,
like
that's
that. He only
that's a
gets another
design-
340 above his existing first floor.
well, this is why the building commissioner, this is something to be addressed with him. That's why it is 5.33 falls under him.
Yep, but I was just asking about the max.
Yeah, we are just deciding if within our regulations, he's permitted to do the second floor, and he's not violating the height.
Yep.
He's not going outside the approved foundation, so it comes down to that middle ground where, he's gonna have to give up space. The neighbors, again, like I said, no one's gonna like me tonight.
I understand. I just wanted a number because things have been super vague. And I think vagueness has worked to some people's favor. And so I like hard numbers. So
Okay.
thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of the public, either in person or on Zoom? Okay, any other? Yeah, please, if you'd come to the microphone.
Sheila Lang, 1 Beach Street. I used to work for Anthony Tappe, who was head of the American Institute of Architects, so I know how to read a plan. I understand the plans that have been submitted are still not a full set of plans, in my opinion, and the numbers are always changing, the floor plan is always changing. I'm worried a little bit about if the second floor is approved, what is eventually going to happen. I'm worried that inspections weren't scheduled before we came to this point, unfortunately. The other thing that I'm concerned about is in the zoning bylaws, as far as I understand, to protect and conserve the value of property, to conserve natural conditions. I mean, none of those things are being, which comes under your jurisdiction, seem to be complied with in this addition. It's close, it's big, it's unsightly, it's very invasive of the entire neighborhood, and it's not in keeping with the neighborhood, which is part of the zoning bylaws. But my main concern is that I still haven't seen a full set of plans. I don't know what it's going to look like. I still don't have an elevation from one particular side, the one facing part of his parking lot. And so I do see the elevation from the other side, but the numbers are changing consistently, and I don't believe this last set of drawings clarifies that. But Bruce, you're an architect. I mean, do you feel like it's very clear? And you know those are
Better
based.
than what it was.
What?
It's a lot better than
Oh,
what
it's
it was.
definitely better than what it was. Absolutely.
it's not.
I understand. But also, there's no designation in that basement for, open space with a full bathroom. We all know it's bedrooms. But my concern is, again, I'd like to see an elevation from all sides, see what it's going to look like, get a final determination what the roof line's going to look like. I mean, I think those are important questions. And thank you for your time. Would you like to, what do you think, Bill?
Well, I don't disagree with you, but I guess part of as Ms. Kelly said, the Realtor came and said, well, sitting next to a construction site isn't a good thing. I think everybody would like to get this off the dime. I have, well, it's not an issue of sympathy. It's what's the path forward? What I can say is if this board approves something, I mean, I think we'll discuss possible conditions that would be put on this. And I think given the history and everything, the building inspector will be all over this in terms of regular, constant, he came to an earlier meeting and admitted that he dropped the ball a little bit, and, he owned up to it. I'm
Right.
sure he wants to,
Resolve
make
it as well.
Make it right. So he will be all over this on a regular basis and make sure that that the rules are being followed. That's about the best I can do. I
Right.
mean, if there's a
And that does-
decision which everyone gets a copy of, and then and abutters feel that the decision's not being followed, they can contact the building inspector. There is an appeal period. I mean, there is an appeal process. So I guess that's what I would say.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I understand your concern and your unhappiness, but do you want a, building site there for months on end? Because that's the real politic of
Right.
this.
But I do want it to be in compliance with, not only this board, but the building inspectors, and I still feel like it's kind of, I'm a little concerned, as I said,
Well, I think,
about the plans and the
among
way.
among the conditions we'll discuss is, approval of the plans by the building inspector
Okay.
before,
It'll continue.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
okay. Any other questions or comments from members of the public?
Yes, I would like to.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Tricia Vicari, 37 Beach Street Extension. We've been following this since 2020 when it started. Some members of this zoning board of appeals were present then, some were not. When a single-story addition was approved, that was okay. Then, when Mr. Memo begins building, he discovers suddenly that he can't make his ceiling lines match up. I guess I'm wondering, where was his architect? Where were his building plans? That there was no way of knowing that the lines wouldn't match up? And so suddenly, because they wouldn't match up, he needs a second story. Then, in the process of going ahead and building a second story without permission, he decides, you know what he'd really like? He'd really like to see Chabaco Lake. So let's put a third story up so that we can see the lake. This has been an exercise in chicanery from the beginning. This has been an exercise in saying one thing and doing another since the beginning. As an abutter, as someone who is going to look at 47 by 30 feet of wall within 9 feet of my property, something's very, very wrong with this whole process.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Emma Memo has been waiting patiently to add some comments.
Okay, we'll hear from someone, and
It's my daughter, sir. She couldn't make it to this meeting. She had schoolwork, but she wanted to speak.
okay,
Hello, can everyone hear me?
yes.
Okay, my name is Emma Memo. I am 15 years old, and I'm currently a student at Essex Tech. As my father stated, I could not be present at this meeting because I'm studying for an AP Bio exam. However, those of you that have been present know that I have been to every meeting besides the first one. Yes, I'm only 15, but I've been very involved in the situation. I've been looking over the plans. I've been helping with just everything. I'd like to say that this has been a very long process, and I think it's affected everybody, my family and our neighbors as well. And we'd all just like to come to a conclusion that even though everyone might not be that happy, everyone can agree and subside with. I think, as what has been said from this meeting tonight, the only problem that needs mainly addressing is the overdue of square footage, which my father has addressed by adding a back deck. Outside of that, I'd just like to say that right now, as all of the neighbors know, and my family, my home is under construction. I am in my current bedroom. Currently, that will eventually become a hallway. And it's taking a toll on everyone. It's taking a toll mentally, physically, financially, with the snow coming in winter. And I completely understand that you guys would like new plans with the adjustments, fixing the square footage. I do just want to ask if there's any possibility that we could approve tonight and then either have the plans sent just sometime before the December meeting, as the possibility of snow is very high. And as we know, living in Massachusetts, it can be very unpredictable. And if it were to snow on the existing addition, as my dad has stated, it would be detrimental to the all of the work that we've done. And once again, I'd just like to remind you that this is not a crew of 30 men that is building this. This was my summer outside for 6 hours learning how to put up walls correctly. This has been this took up our summer, and then to have everything come to a halt so quickly. And I understand that it is nobody's fault individually, but rather a series of unfortunate events that have ended in this outcome. We just want to try and get this resolved. So I appreciate all of your time and working with us around all of the plans and measurements and different papers, so many papers. So I thank you, and I just ask that if we could come to some type of agreement that does not make us postpone this yet another month and put us at higher risk for destroying everything that we've already done. And if it helps to give you an idea, this is my bedroom. There's currently a piece of plywood because, like I said, our home is in construction. And it's not just another thing of, oh, let's just wait another month for these plans. These plans can be worked around and made in 1 to 2 weeks. If we really must wait another month, then we will. But if it's any possible to make this sooner, I would highly appreciate if you guys would try and work around that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I just want to clarify, because unfortunately they don't understand, I think, what's transpired the last 3 months. I never put a piece of wood up with not submitting approved plans. Okay, I got a foundation permit only, and I did a foundation. When I hired an architect, the architect drew up a 2-story addition, a full set of plans, and it was submitted to the town. The problem was, it didn't go to the right people. Okay, it only went to the building department. He looked at the plans, he emailed me, and he said, your plans are approved, and then he issued me a building permit. I never knew it had to go back to this board. I only found that out after I got the cease and desist order. I didn't even find out before I went to him a week prior to me putting up 1 piece of wood on the upstairs, and I said, hey, I want to do a 3rd story, and he goes, you got to go back to the board.
Okay,
And I said, what do you, no, because this has to be
remember, we've
clarified.
heard all this.
So like my daughter said, if I can get an approval, if it's just gonna be a deck, I can get an approval.
You know-
Hold on a second, sir.
No, I will not hold on. We've heard all of this. We're trying to work with you, and you're going over, we're in Groundhog.
No, but
Day
I'm not, listen, I'm not
Sit down, please.
Sir, just understand one thing, I just wanna ask. Please. Please.
You open your mouth, I'm gonna move that we deny your petition. If you say one more word. Okay. Everybody having a good time? Okay, let's talk about, since we seem to be headed towards approving, possibly approving something, let's talk about likely conditions. I've been taking a few notes. There's an existing kitchen that is apparently going to be replaced. I would suggest that one condition would be that that it'd be a condition of the decision that when a new kitchen is online, the existing kitchen must be taken out. Bruce, I think you referenced the plan shows oh, David, I'm sorry if it was you, an overhang that...
On the left-hand side of the house, there's an overhang. Mr. Memno said that was temporary, but that will need to be removed because that encroaches over the 9-foot line.
That the left hand, that the overhang on the left be removed.
I think we need to have well, you keep going then.
Okay, let me just, that it be a condition that the basement may not be used as living space. And, well, it's in the by.
Bedroom.
I'd say living space.
Bedroom.
Bedroom and/or living space, okay. That specific reference that the addition can't be greater than 100% of the existing gross floor area, which we take to be 1,340 square feet. And
That should be determined by the building inspector.
as determined by the building inspector. Any other, you had any other?
Well, that was what I
Okay,
was concerned about, and I think he needs to look at the second floor plan of the existing house to determine what is livable gross square footage. It might not be nearly as much as the first floor, just by the design of the house, so
Okay, so.
he needs to determine that.
So that the an approved addition, any addition approved under this decision cannot be greater than 100% of the gross floor area of the existing dwelling as determined by the building inspector.
Yes.
Okay. And as part of that, a revised plan, showing that must be approved by the building inspector after consultation with him.
And then the other issue, which was brought up by the neighbors, was concern of a rooftop deck. Bruce, you can probably confirm that. His struts are not,
Well, that just has to be
yeah.
ruled out right off the bat.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of whether they can build or not. You can build anything, but
Yes, no
it
deck.
has to be
No decks on the roof.
no more.
Okay. Any other possible conditions, questions, comments? Any other further questions or comments from members of the public?
Just make sure we list every room as to what its purpose is.
Okay, and the
Because a lot of the
plan
rooms
will,
aren't-
plan
don't
will
have a-
show, plan to show identify each room. Okay, I think we need 2 votes on this. There's the vote to approve the extension or alteration of a non-conforming use, and a separate vote on the appeal of the building inspector's decision. I would think that the vote on the appeal of the building inspector's decision would be that the cease and desist order remains in place until this decision is final, which, on the question of, I guess, timing and procedure, the procedure is when the board votes, and after we vote on a decision, the chairman has 14 days to write and file a decision with the town clerk. From the date that the decision is filed with the town clerk, there's a statutory non-waivable 20-day appeal period. Which has to pass before the decision becomes final. So, assuming we vote to approve this, I would file a decision within 14 days. I usually try to do it earlier, but then there's a 20-day appeal period in which the decision can be appealed by the applicant, the abutter, or an abutter, or anyone. So that's the situation there. So,
just for clarification, also, again, taking into account the seasonal issues coming, with his previous approval of the basement area, would we be able to permit Mr. Memo to button up that floor, since the basement was already pre-approved, to save him from the damage? When I say button it up,
I think I'd leave that to the building inspector. I don't think that, that's, there's, he can, we can trust his determination. So I think he probably I think he has the power in, that, if there is, quote, an emergency situation, that he can approve certain actions be taken. But so if there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to grant the extension of a non-conforming use, approving a second story on the building at 3 Beach Street, based on plans that have been submitted, as will be modified in consultation with the building inspector. And the decision would be subject to the conditions that when the new kitchen is installed, the existing kitchen will be removed, number 1. Second, that the overhang on the left side of the building currently will be removed. Thirdly, that the basement may not be used as a bedroom and/or living space. And the approved addition may not exceed 100% of the gross floor area of the existing dwelling as determined by the building inspector. And the submitted plans will identify the use of each room. So if they're with those, I'm sorry?
No rooftop decks, you said.
Oh, okay, no rooftop deck. Okay, is there a motion to approve the extension of a non-conforming use with the conditions as outlined?
I motion to approve.
Okay, motion by David. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Bruce. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. With respect to the cease and desist order, the appeal of the cease and desist order, I would entertain a motion to deny the appeal of the cease and desist order until such time as the decision just voted on becomes final. Is there,
To clarify, when the building inspector is happy with what he sees, the cease and desist will be lifted.
Right.
He can then lift it. yes.
right. Is there a motion?
I motion to allow the cease and desist to be lifted when the building inspector is happy with the plans.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Thank you all very much for your attendance and input. We'll take a couple of minutes break. Okay, we're back on. Our next item is the continuation of the public hearing for a comprehensive permit submitted by Harbor Light Community Partners for a comprehensive permit pursuant to MGL Chapter 40B for the construction of a 45-unit multifamily housing, the property located at 466 Highland Street, Lot 1, Zoning District RA, and owned by the Britton Family Trust, LLC. So, I believe we have Mr. DeFranza here from Harbor Light Community Partners, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Andrew DeFranza from Harbor Light Community Partners. I think tonight we're going back to Charlie Ware from Hancock Associates to talk about some upgrades to the site plan to try to address some of the questions around lot coverage and drainage and the septic system. So Charlie is online over there and is going to try to share the screen with you and answer your questions and give you some information about the updates and the changes, and be available for your questions.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, can you see that screen?
Yes.
Okay. What I'm going to do is, first part I'm going to do is walk through the peer review that was done by, they have a GM2 Associates. And I'll try to be brief in all of these. It was the first thing actually wasn't a change to the plan. The first thing we did was made some changes to the stormwater report, which was, there were flow paths that were not depicted on the original report. Those were added to the report. Those have been submitted to the board. GM2 also had suggested we have on this site, we have an underground infiltration system in this area and also one in this area. And GM2 suggested that we go with a slower infiltration rate based upon some of the soil results that were found. So we made those adjustments. Again, more of an adjustment to the stormwater report, no real large adjustments to the site itself. The next point was he asked for both additional soil testing as well as a mounding analysis. We did additional soil testing. There were two right underneath this proposed infiltration system. We had already done testing out in this field, and then we did testing in this field as well to support the septic system design. And I'm going to speak about that a little bit more in a second. So that soil testing was done, and we also provided a mounding analysis for the stormwater, and that's contained within the stormwater report. The next thing he asked for was we have on site, we have a number of structures. They're called a context vort sentry, and what those are, they're vortechnic units that help in cleaning up the stormwater, and they wanted more documentation on the level of treatment that those provided, and we provided that information within the stormwater report. The rest of the issues that were raised were more housekeeping issues that were kind of within the language of the stormwater report, and I'm not going to get into detail on that right now. They were all minor issues. Let's see. There was an issue that was brought up. The infiltration system at the very top of the page right here, it's only about it's about 15, 20 feet from the property line. That property line, beyond that property line, is actually the Britton Family Trust land. And the concern that the peer reviewer had brought up was that when you put an infiltration system like that on a property, you take away, you're supposed to have certain distances to well, for example. And his concern was, geez, if does that person on the other side of the line realize that he won't be able to put a well there. Two things about that. Number one, the land on the other side of that line is within a conservation restriction. It can only be used as agricultural land. And the second part is that the Britton Family Trust is fully aware of this project and has no intention of placing wells in that location. So I think that issue has been addressed. The next one we had asked for a waiver from the Groundwater Protection District, section 9.1.93. And what that called for, it says if you were over 15%, that you needed a special permit from this board to allow to be under the, to provide for treatment. Now, I would submit that this plan meets that. We had just about 5 acres on this property. And I think that put us, it was 28% of coverage. And with the infiltration systems and the Vortec units that I spoke about earlier, I'd submit that we would meet the requirement for that special permit. However, after hearing some of the abutters' concerns, we had discussions with with the owner, with the buyer, with Harbor Light. And what we've proposed to do is, on this plan, you'll see in the red hatch down in the corner, that's the original proposed lot that we had. And that's just about 5 acres, 4.891 acres. And what we're proposing to do now is to expand the overall footprint of the lot and to purchase an additional almost 19 acres. So almost a total of about 24 acres will be purchased. So this lot will now be 24 acres instead of the 5 acres. When you look at it from that perspective, the old saying is the solution to pollution is dilution. Harbor Light, I don't say that lightly. Harbor Light takes very, very seriously the protection of the well, the town's wells. They are about 4,300 feet away, but certainly stormwater and effluent from the septic system will reach those wells. That is foreseen within the regulations. Title V allows for septic systems to be built within a zone 2 that goes to that well. And if you meet the regulations of the zoning bylaw, if you meet the regulations of Title V, then you adequately protect those wells. So that's what we want to do. We want to protect those wells. We want to be in full compliance with the regulations. And I'll explain some more, but I'll submit that we're in full compliance with those regulations now. Starting with this lot being at 24 acres, we'll only have about 5.8% of the site will be impervious now. So we'll be under the 15%, and we won't require that special permit. So we're withdrawing the requirement for that special permit. Secondly,
could I just clarify one thing, if I could? Sorry to interrupt, but
no, go right ahead.
Because the way the slide is shown here, it's against the. So I get okay. Well, I guess my question's been answered. From what I can see on your slide, it wasn't clear that this new parcel would be contiguous, but it is contiguous to the earlier parcel. So
that's correct.
Okay, that answers my question. Thanks.
Okay, so and the next piece of this is we've submitted with the. I'm going to jump back to this one. We've submitted to the Board of Health details of the septic system, which is it's called the Presby system. We've showed all the details of that system. There's 2 tanks. There's a pump chamber and then a large septic tank that will be providing storage and treatment of sewage before it goes into the Presby system, which additionally provides treatment of the system. This system, we've done a mounding analysis for this system as well, and this system will adequately protect the groundwater supply and will protect the wells. One of the advantages that we have now of the larger site is we meet Title V requires that effluent from projects not exceed 440 gallons per day per acre, unless you make some other provisions. As we had originally submitted on this project, we were going to do what was called an aggregate plan, which is somewhat land banking and setting land aside. But we've decided, to clean up the issue with the waiver, which I just discussed, as well as to simplify the Title V filing. We've now decided to expand the size of the lot, and now we are in full compliance with Title V. Now, just as a point, just for a comparison, the project directly next door to us, actually for example, their impervious surface on that lot, it's a 14-acre lot, is right at the 15%. Now, they don't require special permit. They met the regulation as we meet the regulation. Similarly with their septic system, they're within the zone 2. They have a septic system. I believe they're right at the limit of what's allowed. And we don't take issue with that. Our project is very, very similar in that the density number of bedrooms that are on this lot per acre are just about the same as what's next door. So we're looking at this from the point of view that we're providing the same level of protection that the folks did next door, and that we're adequately protecting the well. And I think that probably pretty much sums up my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Questions from members of the board? I have one question, clarifying question. You said you'd done additional soil tests. Is that the equivalent of test pits?
Yeah, it may be a little bit, a better word for it is probably soil observations. We do a test pit, you go out with a backhoe, you dig a hole, and you observe what the soil textures are, where the groundwater is. And then we do perk tests in the footprint of the septic system. And where if anybody's ever seen it, you dig a small hole, you pour water in, you see how quickly it goes down. In sandy soils, it's like when we were kids at the beach, the water disappears very quickly as you can pour it in. If it's clay soils, it never goes away, and you pour it in the hole and it stays there. So and then you have lots of soils in between, and we take that rate, and then that rate is used to determine the size of the leach field that you need.
Okay. The reason I'm asking about the clarification is Greg Bernard, our the town septic guru, it said that because we've had such drought conditions, that the original the test pits should be done at the rainier time of the year. So I think he was suggesting that, if the if the board approves something, that there be it be conditioned on test pits in the spring when it tends to be rainier. So do you have a response to that, or?
Yeah. And Greg had called me before he wrote that letter. I thought the testing we did was okay. I thought that there was what's called soil modeling, where you can see the elevation where the groundwater comes to. What happens is it's really rust. The soil oxidizes, and you can see where the groundwater comes to. Now, our soil evaluator felt that that was adequate to determine where the high groundwater was. I know Greg had some reservations about that, and I think highly of Greg. I respect him. He called me and we had a very frank discussion about it. And he said he was a little concerned about it. He didn't feel that he thought the modeling was quite convincing enough. And he said that he wanted to have us put in some wells, some observation wells in the spring, and just to confirm where that groundwater is going to come to. I feel like it's probably going to come right to where we think it's going to. Now, what happens if it doesn't? What if it comes up higher? Well, then we'll adjust the system. We'll raise the system a bit to get it, further above that groundwater. And the filing that we made with the Board of Health, I told them or asked them to put whatever conditions on an approval that they felt were necessary, and that we were amenable to additional testing in the springtime to determine. And he's talking about putting in a semi-permanent wellhead where you put a pervious pipe into the ground and then you monitor it throughout the spring, and you see where the groundwater comes to. And I would have no problem with this board putting the same condition on. So it's not a difficult thing to do, and if the groundwater is different than what we've predicted, it's not a difficult thing to adjust in the design.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from members of the board?
Just, could I make a couple of...
Sure.
comments, Bill? Just so people are aware, the project, as the site has greatly increased from, what was it, a little bit less than 5 acres up to almost 24, it's going to necessitate an additional peer review process. I've received tonight a check from the applicant to allow us to do that additional work, so we'll get that work going, which should be finalized and available to the board prior to next month's meeting.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from members of the public at this point? Okay, Mr. Hill.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Dan Hill. I'm a land use and zoning attorney, and I represent the direct abutters at the Canterbrook condominium that was just referenced tonight. I don't have a lot of substantive comments to make tonight because we just received these revised plans, I think Friday or Saturday. So we really haven't had a chance to digest these plans and to evaluate to what extent this addresses the concerns that we raised in our letters. But I guess I did have a couple questions. I mean, the first question is, the applicant is adding what appears to be 19 acres to the project site, but I didn't see any evidence that the applicant actually has the option to acquire this land. And typically with a Chapter 40B project, you have to show site control through a purchase and sale agreement or an option. So I guess that's a question through the chair to the applicant, if you wish. What evidence does the applicant have that they actually have the right to actually acquire this additional land?
Well, I guess first I'd ask Mr. DeFranza to address that, and then I'll throw in my 2 cents. And
Well, I'm happy to answer the question for you, Mr. Chair. No, I do. We have an amendment to the option that documents the right to acquire the additional 19 acres, which we're happy to provide to the board.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Obviously, that would be submitted to the board and be part of the record, so.
Okay, great. Because that is a jurisdictional requirement, as the board knows, that applicants have to prove site control as part of the process. And then the other question I have is this this additional 19 acres, and maybe this is a question to the applicant's engineer, how much of this 19 acres is wetlands? And I ask the question because Mr. Ware made a point that what the Title V regulations seek to achieve is to dilute the pollution that's caused by the septic system. And I guess the reason we have the 440 gallons per day per acre is to allow for enough dilution so that we don't have a threat to our municipal well. And my understanding is that wetlands don't actually provide any kind of dilution. There's little or no recharge on wetlands. So I guess the question would be to how much of this 19 acres is wetland, and to what extent would these 19 acres actually serve the purpose of dilution?
To answer the question, may I, Mr. Chairman?
Oh, sure.
To answer the question, I'm not sure exactly how much of it is wetland. Under Title V, there is no requirement. It's strictly a square footage of lot area. There is no particular requirement that takes wetlands off the table. In fact, the dilution is more of a square footage issue than it is a wetlands issue. It's not the wetlands in the area of the lot isn't providing the treatment. It's providing that you have a particular lot with a certain amount of area, and that area is contributing a certain amount of effluent to the ground. And that's the way Title V is written. The next door, again, to go to next door, there were wetlands right directly on the property next door, and their septic system went in with the wetlands. And had those wetlands been included, they wouldn't have been able to do their project. We're doing exactly the same thing.
First of all, I don't, Mr. Ware has now brought up the Canterbrook property twice. I don't see how that's relevant whatsoever. This application, the board's hearing tonight, is about this project, not Canterbrook. And I respectfully disagree with the suggestion.
You've raised the issue, which is an important issue, and I think I know how to flush a toilet. That's what I know about septic systems. So I think we'll let the septic experts duke it out on that. So okay. Anything else?
My point there is just simply that the goal of dilution is not being achieved here. Most of that 19 acres for the board's edification is wetland, and you can check the GIS maps to see for yourself.
Okay.
And what expertise do you have on that, Mr. Hill?
What expertise do I have on how much of the 19 acres is wetlands?
No, that wetlands doesn't provide dilution. We meet the regulation. We meet Title V. It's a misstatement that you just made.
Okay.
We meet the regulation.
I can bring in my hydrologist and we can have expert testimony.
That's fine. Bring him in.
Okay.
And then finally, Mr. Chairman, the conservation restriction is still an issue, and I understand that the applicant had brought in some letter from Greenbelt saying that it was okay to use a piece of this land for the septic system leaching field, but now we're talking about an additional 19 acres of conservation restricted land that's now going to be part of a project site. And I don't see how this project can proceed under that conservation restriction, given the limitations of the restriction.
Updated letter.
I've been waiting a long time to say this, but based on advice we've received from our special counsel on this, not my department, I think that's an issue between Greenbelt and the applicant. So, thank you, if you have nothing else. Any other questions or comments from members of the public, either in person or on Zoom? Ma'am, if you'd...
Thank you. I'm Amy Clark from Canterbrook, 15 Canterbrook Lane. And you have some letters that are in the file from us. So I have concern about conservation land, the addition of the conservation land too. So you're saying that that's not your purview, that's the Conservation Commission's purview?
No, I guess, I mean, the issue was raised of whether because there is a conservation restriction, whether the holder of the conservation restriction could allow this use. The town isn't the holder of the conservation restriction. Essex County Greenbelt is. They've said, at least with respect to the initial application, that this was allowable under the restriction. So, in terms of, what needs to be required to this board, my view is that's sufficient. If they're incorrect, that's between them and whoever they answer to.
Okay, thank you. And at the last meeting, there was a request made for revising of the architectural plans. Somebody, one of you, referred to the building as looking like a hotel, and a request was made that they come back with revised plans. Is that going to happen?
Well, it hasn't happened so far, I guess. It was, I think there was suggestion that they have revised plans, but we haven't seen revised plans.
Okay. Would you be expecting to see them, since you requested them?
Possibly. I mean, we didn't put it as a condition. We said this was a suggestion. If the applicant chooses to go based on what they've provided, well, they're entitled to, and we're entitled to make a decision based on that.
Okay.
So
that's my last question is, who has oversight on the conditions that are set onto a project?
Well,
make sure that those conditions are met, because I think there may be a lot.
The Board of Appeals writes the decision, sets the conditions,
Right.
and then it's implemented by the building inspector.
Okay.
I mean, if something goes forward everywhere along the line, just like a homeowner, has to get periodic inspections.
Okay.
So it's the building inspector.
Okay, great.
Okay?
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from members of the public or from the members of the board? Okay.
Kathleen Injami, Unit 14 Canterbrook Lane. A while back when we were talking about the traffic stuff, I had an additional question or an additional thought around some of that. Should I just put it in a letter to all of you, or is this the time to bring it up? I don't know when the time is.
I think, well, for myself, I think a letter would be good, because I think then we can address it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. At the last meeting, we did extend the date at which the hearing would close to today. We obviously have new information, new plans. We've not heard from our peer reviewer, and there have been other issues that have been raised. So we would like to extend to our next meeting. Are you amenable to that, Mr. DeFranza?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we expected that, and we're amenable to that.
Okay. So our next meeting, does anybody have their calendar, this first Wednesday in December?
That would be December the 7th.
Okay. Okay, then, I would entertain a motion to continue the hearing to our December 7th meeting, and continue our hearing to the December 7th meeting. I think that's enough for now. Is there a motion?
No motion.
Is there a second?
Second?
Second. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, thank you. We do have some minutes to approve. These are the minutes of the October 5th meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the October 5th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Appeals?
I motion to approve the minutes of the October 5th, 2022 meeting.
It's been moved by David Parentchief. Is there a second?
I'll second the same.
Second by Bruce Gingrich. Further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, there are no updates from the chair. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn, is there a second? Discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you and good night.